This is the Gribbly's Folly Sunday Antisocial Hour. That time each week when I smoke my pipe and complain about humanity while answering all of its questions, each and every one. If you're a piece of humanity with a burning, itching, swollen, throbbing, scaly question for me, leave it in the comments down below with the hashtag AskGribbs, and I will answer any question, big questions, small questions, obscure questions, personal questions, whatever you want to know, I'm your man. This morning I am enjoying Dunhill's Captain Black in my Savinelli 920KS, and it's absolutely beautiful day here. The temperature is perfect in the Gribbly's Folly Community Garden and Massage Parlor. We only have a few questions this week. I guess everybody's on vacation. Let's get to them, shall we? What a week. What a week it was. There was the Mueller appearance before Congress. And then I went on some adventures. I have a lot of content coming to you in the next few days / weeks / months. I don't know. I have a random misadventure video that actually does span months that's going to come out hopefully this week. I have a dedicated adventure video, a specific adventure that's going to be pretty interesting, and that should come out this week or next. What's holding me up is that I'm shooting all these photos on these adventures, film photos, and then I got to develop the film and scan it, and it takes a long time to get them actually in the video. So that's I have a backlog now. Normally you're just like trying so hard to make content, but now I got too much content. And so yeah, I did a box opening this week for the Zero Image pinhole camera, and I'm probably going to be doing another box opening this next week for another camera that's coming. We're not going to talk too much about that. Every now and then you need a mid-video hat change. You know what I mean? Sometimes the fishing hat just doesn't feel like me on a Sunday morning when I'm not fishing. So I took a hike this week on the most difficult trail I'd ever been on. Twice. I upped my personal best difficult trail on Thursday. It was Thursday. And then Friday, I mostly sat around and cried. And then Saturday, I was like, I'm just going to go on an easy hike, something with a short hike with a big payoff at the end, go to this waterfall. And I picked one that tourists go to, like it's an amusement park. There's so many people there. And yeah, it was easy. It was super easy to hike to the lower falls and look around at the waterfalls. And I kept seeing these people. There's like an upper falls trail. You can go and look at the upper falls if you want to. And I kept seeing all these tourists go up there, and I thought, well, damn, if they can do it, I can do it. Come on. And what I didn't really take into account was the fact that as they were coming back down the trail, they didn't even look at the lower falls. It was like they pretty much never wanted to see a waterfall again in their lives. And so I started up this trail, and it quickly digressed, I think would be the word, to you think it's going to be this nice focused, like, oh, walking along the waterfall. No. Pretty soon I'm like pulling myself up with ropes greater than 45-degree angles. And there were so many people that there was no time to like stop. There was no room for more than one person on the trail, and there was nowhere to stop. So it's like, oh yeah, you're tired? Yeah, you really need a breather? Well, too bad, because you're holding up like 50 tourists. Anyway, you'll see footage from that soon. Is it still footage? Do we call video footage anymore? Like, is that correct? Because there's no footage. You're not shooting feet of film to be called footage. You're going to see video from that soon. All right, let's get right to your questions. Cassidy Rose, who has no penis, so she gets to the front of the line. People with no penis, front of the line. Or if you get caught in the YouTube spam filter, and I did check this week and no one was in there, I guess YouTube, man, they're really bad at delivering message. You know who else is bad at delivering messages? Instagram. Instagram is bad at that too. All right, if you want to reach me, if you're out there and for some reason you feel like I'm the guy you need to talk to, and you can't get me through these YouTube, Instagram, whatever. By the way, my Instagram handle is Gribbly's Folly. Shocking, I know. Email me, gribblysfolly@gmail.com. All right, Cassidy Rose, ask Gribbs, what is your best memory of waking up at the crack of dawn and going fishing slash exploring? I'm going to have to think about this because I don't often wake up at the crack of dawn. Actually, that's not true. I wake up at the crack of dawn all the time because my kid gets me up at the crack of dawn, but I don't go out into the world. I've never been a morning person. I'm like, photographers, like you can't be a photographer and not be a morning person. So sometimes I just have to be a morning person, but naturally I hate it. I really like waking up when I want to, which is usually like, 8 or 9. It's not like I sleep until 11 o'clock or anything, but I don't like to get up with an alarm. I like to be able to relax, to have my coffee, to groom, brush my teeth in a relaxed fashion, those sorts of things. I don't like to be rushed to get out of the house. However, you can't argue with dawn light, right? So, trying to think about these, it would definitely be an exploring thing rather than a fishing thing because I've never really caught any fish at dawn. I know everybody says that's the best time to fish, and in my experience, they're just wrong. The first thing that comes to mind actually is every now and then I will take for myself what I call a shoot day, where I just go out and shoot pictures. I just get in my car and I drive and I shoot photos. And these usually happen after a disappointment. Actually, both times that I can think of, they happened after I was rejected as an applicant for a job. Both of which were technically okay. So I've been unemployed in my life more than most. I don't know about that actually. I've been unemployed twice as an adult. And it really sucked. Actually, 3 times, but the last time didn't suck. The last time was when I sort of started my own business. But the first time sucked. The second time really sucked. And during that period of time, I applied to, what's that chain? The Picture People in the mall. I applied to the Picture People. Okay. I'm gonna have to tell you the whole story. So I got a job interview at a newspaper while I was teaching photography, and teaching photography was like the worst. It was the worst gig I ever had. Not quite, but it was really bad. And so I went. They were hiring for a part-time job at the newspaper for a staff photographer, and I went and I applied. And the editor, who was this hardline photojournalist who once photographed the invasion of Grenada. I knew the guy. He was like, yeah, I'd love to have you, but you'd have to quit your other job. And I'm like, but it's a part-time position. He's like, yeah, so you got to quit your other job. And I'm like, well, I can't you're offering to pay me like $9 an hour. It's a newspaper job. Like, I can't quit my teaching job to come work for you. And he was like, well, you're just not a good candidate for this job then. And I was like, okay, well, screw you. And now I really wish I had quit the teaching job and gone to the newspaper job, even though I would have lost my ass. I don't know how I would have lived. It's easy to look back and say, I really wish I'd made that decision. But I would not, I would have had to have gotten, like, I would have had to go work at Walmart or something as well. Anyway, that was the first time I took a shoot day, and I went out and shot a bunch of photos. And then, like, 6 months later, when I got fired from the teaching job, that's not technically true, not technically accurate. I left the teaching job, but basically they forced me out because I was telling the truth about their racket. All right, so moving on. I have a really hard time in my life. Why can't I just answer this question? Why is this question so hard? The second shoot day is my fondest memory of getting up early. Yeah, that's it. Definitely didn't open up any other issues. All right, you want to know the story? I'll tell you the story. So the program was, they wouldn't, I was honest with my students about why they didn't have any materials for class. It was a digital photography class. They didn't have any cameras. They didn't have any computers. So I was literally like drawing like RGB channel histograms on the whiteboard because we didn't have computers or projectors or cameras for the class. And I was just honest with the kids. I was like, look, This class only exists because the school makes a ton of money from the government because they offer this class. Like, this is not about teaching you photography. And that didn't go over very well with the administration. So my contract wasn't renewed because they were like, we need you to not do that. And I'm like, look, I'm just going to tell people the truth. Like, if you're trying to tell me that's not the truth, then screw you. And you get the idea. It's a consistent problem in my life that I get myself in trouble by telling the truth. It's like this huge, and I'm not saying there's not another side of the story. I'm not saying, whatever. But yeah, I could still be teaching. I could still, all these years later, 10 years later now, I could still just be, showing up at my teaching job, basically doing nothing all day, not teaching anyone anything, and drawing a paycheck. I could be doing that right now. But I just wasn't satisfied with that. I was like, no, this is wrong. Capital W wrong. I'm not going to be a part of it. And now there's someone else. I'm sure there's been a succession of people doing that job since then. And, I don't regret it, but it did suck at the time when I lost that job. All right. So anyway, I didn't take the newspaper job. Like 6 months later or whatever, I had to leave the teaching job. And after that, I applied to the Picture People, which it was like I went in and I sat down and I filled out the application. And like while I'm filling out the application, I'm like, and I'm wearing like a suit and tie, I'm like watching what's going on in the Picture People studios in the mall, taking pictures of people. So I just went up to the counter when I was done and I was like, can you just put this application in the trash for me, please? And so the next day I got up super early before dawn, had a list of the things that I wanted to take pictures of, and I just got in my car and I went and I took a bunch of pictures. And actually I ended up selling some of those pictures. It's very strange. I took a picture of a church way out in the woods, and later, it wasn't 10 years, but like 7, 8 years later, a friend of mine started a brewery. And that church happened to be his like family church for 10 generations or whatever. And he wanted a picture of the church in the brewery, and he bought that picture for me. And I probably made more on that sale than I would have if I had taken the job at Picture People. Everybody will tell you to just live your dream. But those of us who are living our dreams are so envious of people that can just be happy with normal jobs. Like if I could just go get an office job and be happy with it, I would totally do that. But I can't. I can't be like I just can't do it. And so I live this horrible life where I'm, employed, semi-employed, semi-unemployed, definitely unemployed, don't have any savings. On paper, my life looks terrible. In actuality, my life is great. But if you were to look at my assets and say, man, at your age, I hope you lost a lot of money gambling or something else fun because you don't have anything. It's like, I guess I kind of did. I guess photography is just a giant gamble. Which brings us to our next question about my pinhole camera, the unboxing video. I mentioned I had trouble with customs because it came from Hong Kong. Sam in Bithlow asked Gribbs if you had bought one from the USA, would you have had trouble with customs? I don't think so. There are dealers that sell them in the US, and now I regret not buying it through one of those dealers because I wouldn't say I personally know one of the dealers, but I follow him on Instagram, and his work is great, and I should have bought it through him. But I really just had I needed it quick, and I needed it how I needed it, and I just did it. And yeah, customs was a pain in the ass. Howard asked Gribbs, pasty white guy expresses opinion of pasty orange POTUS. Does a chicken have lips? And then in parentheses, from asocial irreverent Weisenheimer. I don't quite understand all of that. And by the way, I am not pasty white. I am porcelain. Does a chicken have lips? Am I missing something? Is this a metaphor? Because no, a chicken does not have lips. It has a beak. There are no lips on a beak. Why is this a question? Derek Tant asked Gribbs. Right, ask Gribbs, how does one have a proper existential crisis? Well, Derek, I'm glad you asked. because there are best practices when it comes to these things. Number one, it has to be like 3 in the morning, right? And you can't be alone because then you wouldn't have anyone to wake up like you and bother about your existential. Like you have to have a sleeping spouse or family member or friend or whatever in the other room. You have to be in some sort of altered state, like maybe you drank a little too much coffee or bourbon or whatever. Some like just not quite in your right mind. And you have to believe that whatever question you have that has to do with existentialism must be answered right now before you go. You can't spend the rest of your life trying to find the answers to the big questions. They are pressing questions that must be answered now. For example, does time exist? That's a great one. Does time exist? We've talked about this before. And I don't have any. Okay, so does time exist? And I have to figure this out right now. I'm under a time crunch to figure out whether time exists. And I drank too much coffee before bed, and now I'm awake and it's 3 a.m. and the world is just crashing around me. Those are the steps you must take to have a proper existential crisis. And it's not proper unless you wake up your wife and you're like, oh my God, does time exist? And she's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's 3 in the morning. I'm like, how do we know it's 3 in the morning? And that's how you get the final and very important component of the existential crisis, which is shame for waking your wife up at 3 in the morning. To photography, Sam in Bithlow asks, what actually happens to your spent photo processing chemicals? Well, they go to the Cobbs and Breyer says, pipe-related photos would certainly be good sellers among the YTPC crowd. Y'all tell me what you think. Should I take pictures of pipes and try to sell them? It seems to me there wouldn't be much of a market for like pictures of my pipes, but if you guys wanted to send me a pipe to be posed and photographed, I'd totally be into that. So then you just like, you take that picture of your mom that's like on the wall and you trash it and just hang up a picture of your pipe. It's great. Speaking of pipes, I am very happy to be smoking this pipe. I have not smoked a pipe since last week. I didn't smoke one last week, right? I only technically smoked one. So it's been 2 weeks since I have really been able to sit down and smoke a pipe. And this is I remember fondly the days when my kid was very little and I got to sit in the smoky and smoke like 1 or 2 bowls a day. Those were good times. Well, in the pipe smoking dimension, those were good times. In the whole like child rearing dimension, they were really rough. But back to the pipe subject. My cob never got colored, y'all. And I like this pipe a lot. I think though that I will have to throw it in the river to give it some coloring. That pipe woman, Amy Mack, seemed to also hit a wall when it came to coloring the cobs. And it makes me wonder, who are all these people out there? Like, has something changed in the way that Missouri Meerschaum finishes their cobs or something? Because there seem to be a lot of people out there with like really colored cobs. And who are these people? What did they do to their pipe? Or is there a different formulation of the finish that made the older pipes easier to color? Now, I have some very, very weathered looking corncob pipes, but I dropped them all in the river. All right, Tickety Boo asks heavy questions the last 2 weeks in a row, and now Tickety Boo asks, do you grow any fruit or vegetables? I have started in a small way to grow a few things in my back garden, and I really enjoy it. I can barely keep myself alive. And I have a kid. So all of my energy is going into keeping the kid alive. It's a wonder that I'm still kicking. I shudder to think what would happen to any plants I tried to grow. Now I have toiled with the idea. Why? Let me drink more coffee. I have toyed with the idea. I've toyed with the idea of growing my own tobacco because I feel like that's the final frontier in the FDA versus us situation. Is that it's hard to regulate plants. You know, it's very no one out there criminalizes a plant that people just want to grow in the privacy of their own home, right? Okay, so I defeat my own point, even after I stumble over my words trying to make the point, I then immediately defeat it. But like, they don't regulate the growing of poison ivy or bullet trees. I don't know what's regulated, but it would seem to me that if you just wanted to have a nice tobacco crop in your backyard, you could do that. But anytime I've ever looked into it, it looks so complicated and so labor intensive to be able to smoke your own tobacco, and there's like no guarantee that it would actually taste good. Yeah, I don't know. I would rather spend that time and money working an hourly job at the Picture People and then buying tins of tobacco. You know, at that time, the Picture People was actually right across the mall from the tobacco shop. That was back when they had a tobacco shop in the mall. Like, if they could have just paid me in tins of pipe tobacco, that would have been okay. Like, okay, kid, you graduated in, in '09. Oh, why don't you just, here, we don't have a 9. Why don't you just hold the foam finger with the 6 on it upside down pointing to your crotch? That'll be a great photo. Give me some tobacco. Saved the best question for last. Typing Piper, ask Gribbs, are you going to help raid Area 51? No, I am going to be a war correspondent. Government, if you're listening, I'm going to be I'm going to be a journalist. Geneva Convention. I'm going to be embedded with a platoon of weirdos wearing Roswell t-shirts to photograph them getting blown to pieces by a minigun from a chopper. No, I will have no part in the Area 51 thing. I don't know what people think they're going to accomplish. We've talked about this, but let me ask you this. If the government had a bunch of like aliens on life support and they're crashed UFOs, would they really keep them in the place where everyone thinks they keep their aliens on life support and crashed UFOs? Also, if all this really happened and they really did have like files on extraterrestrials, do you think Donald Trump wouldn't blab all that the minute he needed to distract from one of his scandals? Seriously, my plan is to just sit back and wait. If you want to find out about aliens, just hang out for a while. The more news, I was like, oh, here's a picture of Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein pointing at women and laughing together. Oh, look, Trump says something incredibly racist. Let's all talk about that now. So when it's like, oh, here's a picture of Trump and Epstein, like opening catalogs of little girls and picking them out, and they've all got like price tags, like that's when we'll hear about the aliens. Didn't Bill Clinton actually do that? Didn't he like come out? There was like a I remember the press conference where they like had some asteroid from Mars, and he like came out and said there were fossilized bacteria on it, and they'd found life in the. Okay, but it was in '96, so that wasn't a distraction from the Monica thing. Could very well have been a distraction for something else, though. From Inverse.com, to this day, we don't know if those microscopic structures on the meteorite are signs of life or not. Still, Clinton's speech was nothing short of groundbreaking. People didn't seriously talk about the possibility of life on other planets in 1996. I talked about the possibility of a life on other. I was 15. Like, if I was talking about it, surely there were other people talking about it. Come on, it was like the Drake equation came from like the 60s, right? That's a bunch of bullshit. I maintain we don't actually want to know if there's alien life out there. Like, it's better for human beings just to keep on being ourselves than to find someone else to compare ourselves to. Like, think of how neurotic we are when we're alone. Like, if we were looking at like we'd be like, those aliens are hotter than we are. They got more money. They got better stuff. Like, how can we live like this? Or Stephen Hawking would be right again, and they'd just be a bunch of machines coming here to eat us. That's it for today. Thank you so much for watching. Leave all of your questions and comments down below. #AskGribbs. Find me on Instagram @Gribbly's Folly. By the way, we're going to have a serious discussion. Everybody's asking for prints of these images I'm producing, and I want to oblige as much as I can. So look for a video on that in the future. I got so much content to make and deliver. Thank you, as always, for following along. Keep the ends out for the ties that bind.